Of the Standing Committee on Status of Women, I call this meeting to order. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted on Tuesday, February 1st, the committee will resume its study on intimate partner in domestic violence in Canada. Per the directive of the Board of Internal Economy on March 10th, 2022, all those attending the meeting in person must wear a mask except for members who are at their place during proceedings. Pour garantir le bon déroulement de la réunion.
To ensure that the meeting runs smoothly, I would like to pass on some instructions to the witnesses and the members. Before you speak, please wait for me to call your name. If you are participating via video conference, please click on the microphone icon to activate your microphone. Please mute yourself when not speaking. Regarding interpretation, for those who are on Zoom, you have the choice at the bottom of your screen between floor, English, or French. For those who are in the room, you can use the earpiece and choose the desired channel. I would like to remind you that all comments from members and witnesses must be addressed through the chair.
Before we welcome our witnesses, I would like to provide this trigger warning. We will be discussing experiences related to violence and assault. This may be triggering to viewers with similar experiences. If you feel distressed or if you need help, please advise the clerk. I would now like to welcome our witnesses and our guests for today. I am honored to welcome the Honourable Minister for Women and Gender Equality, the Honourable Marcy Ian, and joining her today from the Department of Women and Gender Equality, Aaliyah Butt, who is the Assistant Deputy Minister for Strategic Policy, and Lisa Smiley, who is the Director General of Research, Results and Delivery Branch. We will begin with 5 minutes for the opening statement from the Minister, and then we'll go to our round. Minister, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Madam Chair, thank you so very much for the opportunity to appear before the Status of Women Committee on the matter of intimate partner violence in Canada. I applaud you and FEWO committee members for undertaking this important study of this form of gender-based violence, as any form of gender-based violence is an horrific human rights violation that can take a physical, psychological, emotional, and financial toll on victims, survivors, as well as their families. There is absolutely no doubt that you have been appalled by statistics showing more than 6.2 million women in Canada aged 15 and over have experienced violence from an intimate partner, someone they expect love and support from, someone that they trust. It is also extremely disturbing that between 2014 and 2020, 458 women were killed by a current or former intimate partner in Canada. To put that figure into context for everyone, that was one woman every 6 days. Most recently, the Canadian Femicide Observatory for Justice and Accountability reports that 173 women and girls were violently killed in 2021, amounting to one death every 2 days. Behind these stats are stories of the shattered lives of millions of individuals, predominantly women and girls, whose pain and suffering is absolutely unthinkable. En fait, la violence fondée sur le sexe a fortement.
In fact, over the past few years, the incident of some forms of gender-based violence have risen dramatically. It has been called the shadow pandemic of COVID-19.
When our government saw this happening, we moved quickly to ensure that those experiencing GBV continue to have a safe place to turn. And since April 2020, approximately $300 million in emergency COVID funding has been committed to organizations supporting those experiencing GBV. This includes more than $122 million that has already been provided to 1,300 women's shelters, sexual assault centers, and other organizations providing critical supports and services. Because of this funding, more than 1.3 million individuals experiencing GBV had a place to go. One of those places was the Saskatoon Interval House that was facing financial difficulties due to the pandemic. With the federal emergency funding, they were able to continue helping those in need, providing families with hotel rooms while organizations helped find them a safe and affordable place to call home. They were also able to purchase equipment and programming to support clients online. Madam Chair, this is one of many stories, and our government knows that there is so much more work to do. It's why Budget 2021 announced more than $3 billion over 5 years to prevent and address GBV, with $601.3 million earmarked for the National Action Plan to End Gender-Based Violence, which Women and Gender Equality Canada is leading. The National Action Plan will be guided by the needs of Canadians from every province and territory, taking into very careful account the intersections of sex, gender, gender expression, gender identity, and perceived gender. It sends a clear message: gender-based violence will not be tolerated in our country, and our government will always stand alongside victims and survivors of violence no matter where they live. In January 2021, at the 38th annual meeting of my provincial and territorial ministerial counterparts responsible for the status of women, we endorsed the joint declaration for a Canada free of gender-based violence, including a shared vision, principles, and goals for the National Action Plan to eliminate GBV and advance gender equality for all Canadians. And as we move forward, it is critical to acknowledge that Indigenous, Black and racialized women, girls, and LGBTQ2 and gender-diverse peoples continue to face higher rates of intimate partner violence. To address the pressing needs of Indigenous peoples, Budget 2021 announced $2.2 billion over 5 years and $160.9 million ongoing to build a safer, stronger, and more inclusive response to the ongoing tragedy of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Budget 2021 also invested $236 million over 5 years to expand work to eliminate sexual misconduct and gender-based violence in the military and to support victims and survivors. And of course, money alone will absolutely not put an end to GBV. We must continue to work with frontline organizations, better educate boys and men to be agents of change, because we all must step up to end GBV and build a stronger and safer Canada. Madam Chair, our government is determined to prevent and end gender-based violence by working with provincial and territorial governments, and I sincerely hope that the committee's valuable study will encourage us to move faster. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Minister, so we will be doing our first round. We'll be starting with 6 minutes each for each of the questionnaires. And then today we'll have time for both a second and third round as well. So we're going to begin our first 6 minutes with Dominique Vienne. Dominique, you have the floor for 6 minutes.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Minister, for being available to meet us and to be able to talk about this very serious study that we are all committed to. I have a few questions for you. We could have a war of numbers, but we heard testimonies, we heard groups, we heard women speak to us, and men, but we'll have to hear more from men as well, and I'll get back to that. And almost all of the organizations that came to see us, all the women that came to speak to us, said that there's not enough funding. The needs are significant. You say that over the past year or 2 years, you invest $300 million in emergency funding to help the different groups, but what we're hearing as information is that there's not enough funding. And last week, I can't remember the name, and perhaps my colleagues can remind me, there was an organization from the Ottawa region saying that they had to refuse or turn away 500 women. That's a lot of women that were not able to have access to services in a time of crisis and violence. What would you have to say to that?
Thank you so much for this very, very important question. We are working on sustainability. The sustainability of vital women's and equality-seeking organizations is essential, and I hear you with respect to the organizations, but I will tell you there are places that I've visited. I'm thinking of one in Halifax in particular that frankly could not have kept its doors open if not for federal funding. We know that there have been changes in recent years. We've enhanced our support to organizations, focusing on supporting longer-term, higher-value funding to organizations, including capacity funding. And we recognize that applications for funding could be an obstacle for some organizations. So we've streamlined the process if they are applying and do not have the bandwidth to set aside time to apply. We heard this. We streamlined it and made it simpler and more straightforward. There are more than 250 projects under the Capacity Building Fund that have been supported in this way.
Merci.
Thank you. There's a budget coming up next April 7th. The finance minister will be tabling her budget. Have you met with her? Have you made requests to increase funding for organizations that welcome women facing difficult situations that are trying to leave a violent area?
Stand up and be there for the organizations, for the women, for the youth that I serve. I have indeed put forward requests. We will see what happens come April 7th. But I believe our government, as has been the case since the strategy was tabled in 2017, has stood beside women, has stood beside organizations on the ground that are undergoing challenges, especially now, as we know this pandemic is not over. We continue to provide supports. I'm going to turn to Lisa now, who can provide some numbers, because you did allude to numbers and maybe a war of numbers, just to provide some numbers that would help.
Thank you very much. That would be nice if they could be sent to the committee, because I don't have a lot of time. Madam Minister, there are men who are also in difficult situations. There are men who are violent. Violence can start at a young age, and we are examining intimate partner violence in teenagers. What are you currently doing for men's groups? What do you say to men? Because they also need to be a part of the solution.
Absolutely. I want to talk about something personal here, because this is something that I have advocated for a long time. And it's this whole idea of calling in boys, calling in men, and being there to support men. I met with an Indigenous leader from Iqaluit some months ago, and she said something that I have long remembered. And it's an adage that I am living by and trying to lead my ministry by. And she said, Marcy, an eagle cannot fly with one wing. Meaning, if we are only addressing women when it comes to gender-based violence and not engaging men and boys and addressing men and boys, that we will not get to the bottom of this. WAGE leads several activities to engage men and boys as allies in advancing gender equality and ending gender-based violence. An example, in 2018, WAGE held a series of roundtables right across the country on how to engage boys and advance this. And it led to a report called What We Heard that really has informed WAGE's work to date. Since 2015, WAGE has provided $16.3 million to 40 different organizations that are on the ground engaging men and boys, and also hearing from those boys. Because it's important. We know that this
30
is
seconds
that
left.
this is cyclical.
30 seconds.
If boys experience violence at a young age, they see something in the home, by and large they will repeat that. So engaging boys young at an early age is important to us, important to me.
Quel genre de soutien vous accorde?
What kind of support are you offering to organizations that help violent men?
I'm going to go back to the elder in Iqaluit, who is a social worker and a leader. And she, right now, is undergoing a process where she is calling in the men in her community, frankly, who have victimized, who have displayed abusive behavior, and she is understanding why by talking to them, learning about their experiences.
Thank you very much,
understanding why
Minister.
they do what they do. We can provide more information, though.
Thank you very much, Minister. We're now going to move over for the next 6 minutes to Jenna Suds. Jenna, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Minister, for being here today and contributing to this study. It's been, I think, 8 weeks now, and some fantastic testimony and learnings. What I'd like to ask you this afternoon is, I know that in 2017, our government brought forward the federal strategy to end gender-based violence. And building on that momentum, this year, the government is set to release a 10-year national action plan. And I would love for you to explain to us the difference between these plans and also how they're related.
Jenna, thank you so much for the question. How about I start with the similarities? So in terms of similarities, both the strategy and the NAP link together all of the GBV-related efforts of all of the federal departments, because this is a very inclusive approach. So the departments and agencies form a kind of whole of government of Canada approach to GBV in Canada. The federal strategy was to make sure that there was federal coordination to eliminate GBV altogether and create a runway for the National Action Plan, hence the 10 years. Whereas the National Action Plan is to coordinate the federal government with jurisdictions across Canada at every level.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And maybe building on that, can you share with us the progress that's been made with respect to the National Action Plan and perhaps a few key points from that you can share?
Absolutely. Our government is committed to ending GBV in all of its forms, and Budget 2021 reaffirmed that with $3 billion. I will say that in talking to my provincial and territorial counterparts, I have found that there is not one approach that works for every single province. This is very much an all of, I call it, government's approach. When I refer to my provincial and territorial counterparts in saying what is good for Quebec may not be good for Saskatchewan, what's good for Ontario might not be the priority in Manitoba, and so forth. So it's listening to the leaders in each province and territory, understanding that they are in touch with the grassroots organizations, those that are on the ground, that are serving, and hearing and listening to all of that, and putting forward all of that information. That has led to, the beginning of a framework. We agreed to something quite significant in January, and looking forward, as my mandate states, to providing a framework by fall.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Minister. And with that, I will pass it to Sonia.
Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Minister, the work you and your team doing and being with us today. Minister, we know that women, especially racialized women, have been disproportionately affected by the pandemic, both at work and in the home. Looking forward, what can you tell us about the government's plans to make sure that our economic recovery is feminist, intersectional, and set women up to success?
Sonia, thanks for the question. It really is, pivotal, and it is the forefront of everything. Under the federal GBV strategy and our plan, the priority is to increase support for the most vulnerable populations. And I would like to point out here, when we say women, women are not a homogenous group. We know, as you mentioned, Sonia, that racialized Indigenous women have seen more violence during this pandemic, have had more trauma, and we have to recognize that. And this plan recognizes that. So women, girls, Indigenous women and girls, LGBTQ2 and gender diverse individuals. I want to include here as well women living in the North, women in rural and remote communities. I was speaking to someone just the other day who said, when you're dealing with a rural community and you're experiencing intimate partner violence, everybody in town knows your business. If you go and seek help, there's usually one place to seek it, and everybody will know. And that sometimes stops people from coming forward. And that's something to consider. How do we help women like that so that, they're feeling isolated, they are isolated, that they can seek help when they need it? Women with disabilities, girls with disabilities as well. I'll give you an example, Sonia. There's a project, Eagle Vision. It's an excellent example of prioritizing culturally competent programming. They've developed a series of podcasts, which really is the way to go. And I'm not just saying this as a former journalist. A lot of people tune in. A lot of people take note to podcasts these days. And it's called Taken, this series. And it shares the stories of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls to help solve cases and raise awareness of the issue. What I want to tell you here, though, is that these podcasts are reaching more than 600,000 Canadians who listen to the podcast more than 1.4 million times. And I want to say it's available in English and Cree as well.
Thank you, Minister. Madam Chair, we have more time?
You've got 18 seconds right now.
Okay, I'll pass on.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. We're now going to pass the floor on to Adrienne LaRoche. Adrienne, you have the floor. 6 minutes.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister, for being with us today. I think it's the perfect time. Our study is coming to an end, but there's still a lot of work to do. Madam Minister, you'll understand that this is an issue that we've followed very closely in Quebec, and one of the most recent femicides in Quebec happened close to where I live, and it's always something that is very sad. You talked about funding, and you talked about the importance for many organizations, including shelters, and I'll come back to this importance of funding that needs to be stable and recurrent from the government. So in the action plan to put an end to gender-based violence, would you consider creating stable and recurrent funding for these organizations that are on the front line helping women?
Thank you so much, Adrien, for the question. L'élimination de la violence fondée sur le sexe au Canada.
Eliminating gender-based violence in Canada would not be possible without the coordination of different jurisdictions.
And when shelters reached out to us for assistance, as I said before, Wage distributed $100 million to more than 1,300 shelters, sexual assault centers, and other organizations providing critical supports for GBV. And this funding was distributed through partners such as Women's Shelters Canada, such as the Canadian Women's Foundation, but also the government of Quebec. So Quebec received approximately $17 million of this funding. Budget 2021 announced $200 million to support shelters and organizations which are already following service providers, or flowing rather to service providers. Quebec, in that, is specifically allocated $44 million over 2 years.
C'est des hommes intéressants.
That's interesting looking funds, but I spoke with someone who worked for the Ministry for Public Health, and often that money comes with conditions. So often they would ask for it to come without conditions. In the pandemic, it took 6 months more to agree on funds sent to shelters, and the government tried to put conditions on that money. I know that it's difficult to find an agreement with all the different provinces, but would you commit to streamline discussions with Quebec and other provinces to accelerate the process?
Again, I won't commit to anything until I see forthright exactly what conditions we're talking about. Please, if you will, forward to my office those conditions and the agency or organization that you were talking about, and I would be pleased to look at it. Thank you so much.
J'aimerais aussi revenir.
I would also like to come back. One of my colleagues talked about the budget that we're eager to see next week, and we hope that you spoke with the finance minister, but the issue of domestic violence is intersectional. It touches a lot of people in Quebec. For example, there's the Rebuilding Confidence Bill, Rebuilding Trust Bill, which is nonpartisan, and a lot of departments worked on it: justice, public safety, status of women, and I hope it'll be the same here in Ottawa, because speaking with the Minister of Finance is one thing, but there was a report that was shared by a colleague at the Department of Justice. The report is called Putting an End to Gender-Based Violence and Putting an End to Coercive Behavior. So that was at the Standing Committee on Justice. Have you spoken with your colleague, the Minister of Justice? Because some recommendations, for example, a specialized tribunal, that department would be responsible for.
Absolutely right, Andrea. This is in all of ministries, plural, all of government approach. And I like to call our ministry the glue because it really does touch every single department in government. So the answer rather to your question is yes. I am in constant collaboration with the Minister of Justice, the Minister of Public Safety, the Minister of Defense, the Minister of Housing, all of the ministries, because all of them we impact women and gender equality.
Notamment, il y a la question du...
There's the matter of the e-bracelet, for example, and the government of Quebec can't intervene with certain aggressors because of the rules surrounding going to prison for 2 years. And can you examine Quebec's requests further? With regards to the e-bracelets, for example, we would like for the federal government to work on this, and it could help.
Yeah, I am in constant communication with David Lametti and others, and I continue to support. But when it comes to matters that are clearly in his purview, he will ultimately make those decisions. But please know that I am supporting, and we are in constant communication about these matters.
Thank you very much. We're now going to pass the floor over to Jenny Kwan. Jenny, at 5 minutes, I will let you know that you only have a minute left. So I'm going to pass the floor over to you, Jenny. 6 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to the Minister for coming to the committee today. I'm subbing in for MP Leah Gazan. I'd like to first ask the Minister about core funding. The Women's Legal Education and Action Fund, in collaboration with 26 gender equality organizations across the country, call for your government to commit $25 million per year over 10 years for sustained core funding for women and gender equity organizations so that they're able to continue advocating for and to provide frontline services and support to those in need and those who are fleeing violence. So this promise was included in the Minister's mandate letter. As we know, the rates of violence are increasing, and really for many of the women who are faced with domestic violence and violence in their community, action is slow. So there's no time to wait. And so when can we expect funds to be released to ensure organizations on the front lines are able to respond to this violence crisis?
Minister Ian, before you respond, Jenny, during while the minister is responding, if you could just check your microphone to ensure that you have the microphone checked also on your computer. During that time, I'm going to pass the floor over to Marcy. Marcy, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you for the question. It is clearly an important one. I will say since April 2020, WAGE has distributed more than $122 million, and that money has gone to more than 1,300 shelters and sexual assault centers and other organizations that are providing pivotal supports for those experiencing GBV. Because of this funding, 1.3 million individuals experiencing violence had somewhere to go, had a place to turn, had supports that they needed. Digging into this a little deeper, 448 organizations were able to hire new, and nearly 500 organizations were able to hire additional staff or extend shifts, which was so important during this time and continues to be important to respond to the increased demands that we've heard about today and you've heard about in this committee for supports and services. 560 organizations were able to expand programs and services to respond to increases in GBV during this pandemic. 230 organizations were able to acquire new rental housing units or shelter beds. And 96 organizations were able to support childcare and services and supports of children, because we know when women are fleeing intimate partner violence, many have children with them, and they need special supports to make sure that they're okay.
Thank you, Minister. I hope the sound is better. We did test it earlier and it was fine, so I don't know what happened. So can you hear me now? And
We can hear you.
just
It's all good.
Okay, thank you. So, Minister, I appreciate the funding that has been allocated. However, what the organization is asking for is sustained, ongoing core funding. And that is not what is being made available. I am aware of the funding that's been allocated during the pandemic period, but that is not sustained core funding. So my question is about core funding. Will there be a specific allocation for core funding?
Yes. We have had changes. We've seen changes in recent years, Jenny, and we have enhanced our support to organizations. And if you look at what we've done, you've seen that we are supporting organizations on the ground with longer term, higher value funding. And we understand that this is working, including capacity funding. What that's meant is more than 200 projects under the Capacity Building Fund have been supported in this way, and it focuses
Minister,
on strategic planning.
Thank you, Minister. I have limited time. Then I'll ask you and your department to do this: to table to the committee the core funding allocation to the organizations throughout the country, so that we're aware which organization received core funding from your government and for how long and how much. For all the organizations across the country. If I could receive that, I would appreciate it. I'd like to move on to another question. The issue, of course, is, as the minister indicated, with concerns around the missing, murdered Indigenous women and girls. Yet communities have been waiting for the government to act with a real plan, with a real rollout, and with real markers in terms of progress on this file. We haven't seen very much, quite frankly. The Coalition for the Missing, Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls in my riding in Vancouver East meet regularly, and we are absolutely desperate for leadership from the federal government on this file. So my first question to the minister is this: so many family members continue to look for their loved ones on their own without support from the government. Women and girls continue to go missing. They continue to be murdered at the present day. So will the minister allocate resources to families as they engage in this work to look for their loved ones without any help from any government?
Jenny, thank you. The Government of Canada is continuing its efforts to end this tragedy. And in my mind, if we don't get this right, then we don't get anything right. This is pivotal, absolutely pivotal. I want to turn my attention, because you mentioned, what are we doing? What are we doing for the communities? To the call for proposals that WAGE had. And this call for proposals was meant to bolster the capacity of Indigenous organizations, 2S LGBTQIA+ organizations, to provide gender-based violence prevention programming that focuses on addressing the root causes of violence against Indigenous people. That call for proposals was $55 million. We have had an excellent response to it. We have had responses that go right across the country.
Thank you so much. We're now going to start our second round. We'll be doing 5 minutes for both the CPC and Liberal, 2.5 minutes for the NDP and Bloc. I will begin now with Shelby. Shelby, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being here today. You mentioned earlier in your comments with regards to you're not just throwing millions of dollars at programs and expecting that just to fix everything. I'm not confident that it's working. So what I'm going to speak to today is through the gender-based violence strategy that was funding, it was allocated to Women and Gender Equity, Equality, Public Health Agency of Canada, and it was to address 3 different things. The first one was developing and testing innovative practices in youth-teen dating violence prevention, preventing bullying and cyberbullying, and developing a framework to address gender-based violence in post-secondary institutions. So again, I'm not seeing the tremendous amount of progress as much as we would like. It's a really concerning issue for several different reasons. So my question to you is, what results do you think have come out of those particular frameworks? And considering their funding is set to expire soon, I recognize you can't anticipate and share what's forthcoming in the budget, but where are you at with this?
It's such an important question, and I am very much a research-based person, Shelby, so numbers matter to me. We've spent $30 million just to equip our department to do research and get disaggregated data to address a lot of what you've just talked about. So I'm going to turn to Lisa now, who has those numbers and can amplify them for you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, through the federal strategy, as the minister said, we've spent over $30 million in research since 2017, and that's given us 3 new national surveys, including an ability to better understand intimate partner violence. Through that strategy since 2015, we've also invested $213 million in 557 projects that have reached nearly 1.3 million women. 1.3 million women who have had programs and supports related to gender-based violence because of this federal framework. As the minister's already said as well, we've invested during the pandemic over $122 million in over 1,300 shelters, sexual assault centers, and other gender-based violence organizations that have reached more than 1.3 million women.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate that. And any further documentation that you could provide to the committee, that would be helpful. I guess it's just concerning because, often we can talk about how many millions and how many thousands of dollars are being spent on something, and I appreciate there is being work done, and I can respect that. But after listening to several different witnesses over the course of the last several weeks, it just seems as though every time we turn around, of course, they're asking for more funding, but how do we use that funding so that we no longer have 500 people being turned away at shelters? So my next question would be, yes, you've committed to additional funding for shelters in 2021, in fact, over $300 million. So what is the progress of this funding, and how is it being allocated to shelters across the country, and how many women shelters, how many male shelters? Again, this is not going away. It was intended to be fixed years ago. The intent was, we heard from one particular witness that, 20 years ago they had an end game of, in 10 years from now, we were hoping to have this program, this situation solved. And today, again, you're insinuating that you're not going to stop until it's solved. So what is it going to take, and how can we best use these millions of dollars that are being poured into these programs? Money doesn't solve everything. We need action and actual programs.
55 seconds.
Oh, boy. Absolutely. And it's the bane of my existence, Shelby. It's the reason that we're here. But I'll give you a couple of examples. From 2017 to 2020, WAGE, for example, provided the Newfoundland Aboriginal Women's Network with nearly $300,000 to increase women's reporting of domestic violence. That's on-the-ground, tangible stuff. As a result of this funding, more than 1,200 Indigenous women who experience violence now have access to culturally relevant supports. That is really important. You wanted an on-the-ground example. In Halifax, I visited a friendship center, and while reports of GBV weren't up exponentially in the provincial numbers, they were at that center. And the fact that women fleeing violence, Indigenous women, could then meet with therapists and people that looked like them, that could understand their experiences, was so important. The executive director at that shelter said, our numbers are up. The provinces may not be, but they're up because cultural relevance is important.
Thank you so much, Minister Ian. We're now going to pass it over. And do we have Anita Vandenbelt? Anita, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you, and I want to thank you, Minister, for being here today. One of the things that we've heard throughout this study is that there is a link between gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, and poverty. And despite progress, there is still a persistent wage gap in our country. There are many reasons for this. We know that women working in jobs with the same education level, same skill set, are making less than their male counterparts. We know that women primarily have more responsibility in terms of caregiving. We know that women have less access to capital. And this persists throughout her life because when she retires, because of not paying as much into pensions, we see more poverty amongst senior women. And this makes women vulnerable throughout their lifetime. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what we are doing and what you are doing to address the gender wage gap in Canada.
This is such an important question to raise, and again, as an example of an all-of-government approach. You mentioned housing, you mentioned a lot of things there, and again, liaising with all my ministerial counterparts to make sure that we address this properly. Our government recognizes that making sure that women are financially independent gives them the mobility to leave. If they're in an unsafe situation, they can leave. That is not the case for so many women, and we know that. So, for example, in collaboration with Minister Hussein, the minister responsible for housing, and you look at the housing strategy, 25% of the 10-year rapid housing plan, this is a $70 billion plan, is dedicated specifically to women and children. I've seen the results of this in my own riding of Toronto Centre. I've seen it take hold and make a difference. What that means is that at least 7,000 spaces will be created or repaired for survivors of family violence, and that's a huge thing. The Women Entrepreneurship Fund that facilitates ease of access and capacity for women to start their own businesses is very important to attain that independence, Anita, that you talk about. Minister Ng, who put this forward, I mean, is really seeing the impact of women being supported and starting their own businesses, because when women thrive, communities thrive. Now our entire country, thank goodness, has affordable childcare. And we know what that means. Women were making the decision of either having to stay home or, in a lot of cases, work and, pursue their goals in their professions. All of these things make it easier for women to leave an unsafe environment.
Thank you. I'm passing my time to Ms. Lombropoulos.
Thank you, Anita, and thank you, Minister Ian, for being here with us to answer some of our questions today. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know I only have a little bit of time left, and I know that you already touched on some of the questions that I had in mind, so I'll try to focus it a little bit more on something that hasn't necessarily been answered. We heard from a lot of witnesses on the number of young people who go through gender-based violence, the number of young women who are affected, and that this is the biggest group that is affected. We also know that no matter how much funding we put into it, it's still an issue, and it's actually more of an issue now because of the pandemic than it's ever been in the past. Nipping it in the bud seems to be the best way to go about it. What are your thoughts on teaching women what healthy relationships are like and what boundaries to set? How much importance are you placing on that in this mandate?
So much importance, Emmanuel, and thank you for the question. At present, WAGE is currently funding projects that contribute to the promotion of healthy relationships, because that's where things start amongst youth in Canada. So we're developing a youth campaign on gender-based violence. It focuses, we're going young here, as early as 14 and goes to 24 years of age. And it includes things like resources for youth, information on sexual violence, consent, which is so important, and healthy relationships. WAGE is also funding White Women with $1.65 million to support the development and implementation evaluation of a social marketing campaign. So we're going to them where they are to inspire men and young men across Canada to change their attitudes and behaviors, to seek help when they need it, to embrace their role as allies, to embrace their role as change makers.
You have 15 seconds left.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the work that you're doing on this file.
Thank you. And now we're going to pass it over for 2.5 minutes to Adrienne. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Minister, this is an issue that touches different departments. It's important to invest in housing because we can't get a woman out of a violent situation without finding her safe housing. And with the other programs as well, it's difficult for women to have access to programs with funding in order to find work. But I would like to come back to your ties with the Justice Minister. Some witnesses have asked that the federal government criminalize coercive control. It was done elsewhere, for example, in Scotland, which is a source of inspiration. Domestic violence is not always physical, but it always hurts. Between 60 and 80% of women who ask for help with violence have been through coercive control, and so have you examined the possibility of the criminalization of coercive control, and could your department examine the possibility of criminalizing coercive control and controlling behavior?
Jan, you're absolutely right that everybody has the right to live free from violence. And I know we've all probably seen Elizabeth Renzetti's excellent pieces in the Globe and Mail on coercive control. It is front in mind. And when we talk about GBV, coercive and controlling behaviors are a big part of that. It's time. Canada's strategy to prevent and address gender-based violence that was launched in 2017 brings together all gender-based violence-related efforts of all federal partners, including Justice Canada, to form a whole-of-government approach to end GBV in this country. And my colleague, the Honourable David Lametti, Minister of Justice, leads Canada's important work to address coercive and controlling behavior, and he has my support to do that.
Est-ce que vous avez réfléchi?
And have you examined the training of judges and other legal actors on coercive control? Because many experts have asked better training to responders.
As I said, I will work alongside the Honourable David Lametti to that end, and would be pleased to provide any information that I can to you, Antian, to your office.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. We're now going to move it over to Jenny Kwan. Jenny, 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. I just want to touch back on the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls issue. And I just want to note that the National Action Plan must outline timelines, responsibilities, milestones, indicators, resources, and Indigenous leadership for each and every call for justice, as well as regional and sector-specific reports and recommendations. I hope that there will be action taken in this regard, and that there would be it would be outlined in the upcoming budget. Now, the minister touched on the issue around poverty, and we know from research that raising living standards and lifting individuals out of poverty is one of the key ways to address intimate partner violence. MP Leah Gazan has put forward a bill for a guaranteed livable basic income to ensure that individuals and families doing unpaid care work can have economic autonomy and opportunities to leave harmful living situations. So I'd like to ask the minister if she would agree that this is a fundamental step for the government to take to lift individuals out of poverty, and will she support her private member's bill?
Jenny, thank you for the question. Of course, everything is on the table. Poverty, as you know, is a huge, huge part of the reason that women don't leave intimate partner violence. And as I've addressed to my previous colleague, we are providing and putting things in place, including a child care program that will help women across this country with regards to $10 a day child care by 2025, and cutting that child care in half by the end of this year, that will help women.
Minister, if you can just answer my question, when you say everything's on the table, will you support the bill?
Everything is under consideration, Jenny. That's what I'll say at this time.
Are there discussions with respect to this in terms of the government taking action on a guaranteed livable basic income?
We are considering all approaches, Jenny, and that's what I will say at this time.
All right, well, then I urge the minister to take significant action on this. Talking about it actually does no help for the people, and what we need is for the government to implement the bill, and I will urge the minister to take that action to be a real champion for women, especially women who are fleeing violence.
Oh, thank you. Okay, take 10 seconds to reply, just a quick.
No, I was just going to say the government and me as minister, I will say, Jenny, have demonstrated leadership. As I said, this is the bane of my existence. I want to serve in this capacity well, as does my team, and we take all of this very seriously. And any kind of comment to the contrary is absolutely not true.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're now going to go into our third round. It will be 5 minutes for both Shelby and for Pam. So 5 minutes to Shelby.
No, for...
Oh, golly gee. Yep. I'm sorry, Michelle Frary. How about you get on there?
Thank you. I was like, wait a minute.
It's Friday afternoon at 10 to 2. Sorry. Michelle, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you. And Minister, pleasure to finally meet. I wish we were meeting in different circumstances. I think we have some mutual friends, and I have a lot of respect for what you're doing. And, you know, a lot of what you said, I wish we had 2 hours, to be honest with you, because this really is a nonpartisan issue in so many regards. And I can see your effort, I can see your passion, and I can see your authenticity. So I really value that and I appreciate it today. I want to talk a little bit about two things, if I can. We've seen a real shift. I loved your comment about the eagle can't fly with one wing. I'm very interested in what we're doing for our young boys and men and how we're changing that. We've seen some incredible growth with women and opportunities, like yourself being a female minister, of color, amazing. We see women who are now having these opportunities, but our men have not had an opportunity in how to transition with that. We had clearly defined gender-based roles for years, for decades. We look at sort of the 50s, 60s, 70s models of pink jobs versus blue jobs. And now we have men that sometimes don't know where they fit as a result of a strong, powerful woman. And that can often translate into perhaps coercive control or, you know, an unhealthy relationship. What do you think would be an effective strategy to teach our youth about knowing what your place is? Because it really comes down to men maybe not feeling like they have a place. If the woman is now providing the money, if the woman is now doing these things, what can we do as a policy and culture to help men know that they are still very important as we all evolve?
Michelle, thanks so much for the question, and it's great to see you, albeit virtually. And this is really important. You know, the eagle can't fly with one wing is just that, and it gets to the heart of it. We've got to call men and boys in, make sure that they are at the table, and that we are engaging in conversation and listening and understanding. I'm going to point again to my Indigenous friend in Iqaluit, who said this is where she's centering her work, because so many women have been abused. So many are fleeing intimate partner violence. She wants to get to the root of it. And that means peeling back the layers of men themselves who are perpetuating this violence, but who have gone through violent situations themselves, who have gone through horrendous things. So whether it is, you know, residential school survivors who themselves have families and, you know, perpetuate violence because they saw violence, you know, all of these things, violence begets violence. So it's calling the men and boys in, it's listening. It's not just speaking to them and talking at them, it's listening to them. And since 2015, WAGE has provided $16 million to over 40 organizations that do just that. They engage men, they engage boys, and they look at gender-based violence protection.
Yeah, that's great. And I loved your comment where you said money isn't the only thing. I was so glad to hear you say that, because it is such a mosaic. And I know with your background, you know, we cannot, and you've talked about social media and influence. I think it's going to be really critical that we change culture and thinking, that your roles aren't defined. I want to go over to a very important topic right now. Obviously, ex-Defense Chief Jonathan Vance, very big issue that's come across. And Sabrina Mado obviously published this article, and you know, she's saying it can't even be described as a slap on the wrist, because he's allowed to walk away from his sole criminal charge, because he was a man of good character. But I want to go to the point where it said, not because of a lack of evidence, but because Vance was literally too powerful to be held accountable. How do we shift that, not just in the military, in politics, in all facets? What can we do in terms of policy to make sure this doesn't ever happen again?
Yeah, you're talking about changing an entire system. And an entire system isn't going to change overnight, as you know, Michelle, but there are most certainly things that we can do. You know, as directed in my mandate that came out December 2021, I continue to work very, very closely with the Minister of National Defense to end discrimination and sexual misconduct in all forms of gender-based violence in the military. Specifically, though, General Vance's guilty plea and subsequent sentencing is an individual criminal case about an individual defendant. So our responsibility, our commitment as a government is to continue to build an institution where everyone can work with the respect and the protections that they need to do their jobs. We want more women stepping up and wanting to serve, and we want them to be able to do that in a safe environment and feel confident that they can go to work without being harassed in any way. I mean, that is our most basic responsibility, and it is Minister Anand, I can tell you, her utmost priority. She works to end, any kind of discrimination.
Minister? We're way over time.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm such a talker.
Yeah, you versus me. I think we got this.
It's just a lot. Yeah. But Michelle, it's a great question. And you know what? I would love to engage further on this, and we can set a time maybe outside of committee to talk more about this, okay?
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And for our final round, we're going to pass it over to Pam Vadama. Pam, 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair, and to everyone here. Minister Ian, thank you for being here and for the work that you're doing. I have long said that firearm violence should be treated as a public health issue. We need to consider the burden of injury from firearm deaths, which includes guns and gangs, which gets all of the press, but it also includes suicides, which is over 75% of firearm deaths, and it includes domestic violence. In 2016, the Ontario Coroner's Death Review Panel said that 26% of deaths in Ontario related to intimate partner violence involved a firearm, and I've spoken to them, and that number is higher today. There was a peer-reviewed study that was done in rural New Brunswick and PEI where it found that 2/3 of the women whose homes had firearms said that knowing firearms were present made them fearful for their safety and well-being. And 70% said that it affected their decisions whether to tell others or to seek help for the abuse that they received. So I wonder, Minister, if you could just comment on what we need to do when it comes to firearms, because I think it's an aspect of this that often gets overlooked in conversations when it comes to firearms.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Pam, and it's about collaborating with my colleagues on this very important question as well, and I do with the Public Safety Minister, the Honourable Marco Mendicino, and we talk often about this. I represent Toronto Centre. I see a lot of firearms issues. I see a lot of gun violence. A lot of that gun violence is perpetuated against women and, sadly, girls, more than I'd like or am ever comfortable with. Shootings are regularly the most common reported means of killing women and girls in Canada. It is as simple as that. And according to the Canadian Femicide Observatory's annual reports, and we know that for every victim of femicide, there are many more who have survived, physically survived, but they are struggling mentally. So they have gone through such trauma and layered trauma that is still with them and stays with them and will impact them for life. As the minister responsible for the development of the 10-year National Action Plan to end gender-based violence, I know that coercive control is a big part of this too, and we see this. Law enforcement and our courts are not always educated on coercive control. We know that it puts more women at risk, and so we must move forward with implementing Bill C-71, not only as a tool to strengthen our gun control laws, but as a way to prevent gun violence and domestic violence. And might I just add this note? When I became minister responsible for women and gender equality and youth, the first question I asked as Minister of Youth was, how young? How do we characterize youth? And I was told, I think, 15 to 29, and I said, far too late. Far too late for the kids on my streets. Far too late for many kids across this country. We have to get to them sooner, because the bottom line is that a lot of kids aren't seeing themselves. They're not seeing themselves in the education system. They're not seeing themselves as far as being part of society and being included. And how do they get power? How do they take that back? Sometimes it's holding a gun. Sometimes it's perpetuating violence against others. So for me, things like mentoring, getting kids when they're younger. We say all the time, if we can see her, we can be her. That means something. Or if you can see it, you can be it. Showing kids that they can attain goals and be who they need to be prevents, and there is a correlation, the violence we see later.
So I've only got about a minute left, and earlier you mentioned childcare, so I'm switching gears here a little bit. This committee did an outstanding study in 2018 on the economic security of women, and the number one issue was the access to universal affordable childcare. I'm one of those women who would not have gone back to work had I not had a boss who was very generous both financially and with time. So I wonder in 45 seconds if you could expand a little bit on the importance of the child care program that is now universal across the country.
You were one of those women, and I was one of those women. But in my case, in the field of journalism, it was, you don't plan on having kids anytime soon because we're going to need you to be in a bureau for a while. So these are the kinds of things that impact us as women. This is seminal. This is huge. This means with universal child care that women across this country, families across this country, no longer to have to make hard choices. Do I keep the lights on in the house or do I pay for child care? Can I go back to work or do I stay at home with my kids because that's more, financially feasible? This is huge. This is going to change the way women see themselves and are able to contribute to society in a very different way, and women at all levels.
Thank
I'm
you.
so sorry, Madam
It's
Chair.
okay, Minister. Thank you so much. On behalf of the committee, I would really like to thank the Minister for being here today. To Leah and to Lisa, thank you so much. It's a part of the great work. And we were going to suspend just for about 30 seconds so that the next panel can get online. So suspending 30 seconds.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure to be here.
We are now going to be welcoming our second panels. For our second panels, I would like to welcome from the Service pour Femmes Immigrantes d'Ottawa, Mercy, oh, sorry, I should be putting on my glasses. Mercy Lalu, who is the Directrice for General.
Immigrant Women Services Ottawa, Merci Lalouvi, Executive Director. From l'Aire des Centres de Femmes du Québec, Stephanie Vallée, Co-Coordinator.
We have Alice Sistrom, and who is the Coordinatrice Service.
Coordinator, Victim Services. Coordinator, Community Development and Engagement.
Over, you will each have 5 minutes. When you see me start giving me my pen, that's if you could wind it up, that'd be fantastic. I'm going to first pass the floor over to Mercy. Mercy, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
I have to unmute. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, honorable members of the Standing Committee on the Status of Women. It is indeed an honor and a pleasure to have been invited to be on this panel today. My name is Merci Lalouvi, and I'm the Executive Director at Immigrant Women Services Ottawa, an organization that is dedicated to empowering immigrant and racialized women in the city of Ottawa and surrounding areas to participate in the elimination of all forms of violence against women and children. I'd like to start by acknowledging that I'm joining you from the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. My comments today will focus on the issues faced by immigrant and racialized women, survivors of violence, and I will provide some recommendations. So one of the groups most vulnerable and more at risk of experiencing gender-based violence are immigrant and racialized women whose experiences of intimate partner violence intersects with several other oppressions, including systemic racism, discrimination, and marginalization, amongst others. COVID-19 has exacerbated the problem of gender-based violence for immigrant survivors, many of whom were completely isolated and at the mercy of their abusers. This is particularly true for those with a language barrier. Many had to flee for their safety and disclose that shelters were not an option for them since most first-stage shelters were full, leaving them with options such as hotels or motels, which posed additional safety and emotional challenges. The situation was worse for newcomer women who had not yet built a social network and felt totally isolated. Additionally, access to safe and affordable housing is a challenge because of inadequate housing availability, and unfortunately, certain communities have become oppressive enclaves where racism and specifically Islamophobia, anti-Black, anti-Asian racism further marginalizes survivors. Furthermore, many immigrant and racialized survivors remain vulnerable and unprotected because they are afraid to call the police in an emergency for fear of re-victimization. And for non-status women, they are afraid of putting themselves at risk of deportation. This leads to the gross underreporting of violence that exists amongst this group, and this is a problem, especially when femicide rate in Ontario increased by 94% from July 2020 to July 2021. I'd also like to add that as immigration levels increase and as we welcome more immigrants to Canada, the lack of information on Canadian laws on gender-based violence and the resources available to them puts them more at risk of experiencing gender-based violence. Having touched briefly on these issues, I would like to make some recommendations for consideration. Firstly, there is a need for intersectional approaches to policies and a review of the impact on the most vulnerable and marginalized communities. A review of the social and economic underlying causes of gender-based violence, such as poverty, housing, cultural and linguistic factors, low-paying jobs, immigration status, etc., are needed, as well as a review of policies that continuously support the patriarchal system of oppressions. Secondly, the implementation of a robust national awareness and prevention strategy, including providing information on intimate partner and domestic violence to newcomers at all points of entry in their language of choice. Thirdly, there's a need for increased government-mandated training of law enforcement officers on all forms of gender-based violence and its potential impact on immigrant, refugee, and non-status women, with additional training on intersectional and trauma-informed approaches. Training is also needed on how to effectively use interpreters during sensitive interviews. There is also a need for a housing strategy that reflects the needs of marginalized communities seeking safety. And finally, the implementation of multi-year, increased and sustainable funding for women's organizations providing frontline responses to survivors of violence. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mercy. And now we're going to pass it over to Stephanie. Stephanie, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Oui, merci.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to be here. I just wanted to say that my thoughts go out to the community of La Belle-Surveillance, where there was likely another femicide yesterday, and following that there was a suicide. I'm here to present l'Aire des Centres des Femmes de Québec today. It is a group of about 90 women's centers in Quebec spread over 14 regions. Women's centers were created to meet needs that were not met by traditional public services and to support women in all of their efforts to become autonomous. Women's centers are living environments, and when workers receive women who participate at an activity or for a walk, for example, the Women's Walk every 5 years, or just to use some of the Women's Center services, well, those women are received without judgment and without labeling their situation. Oftentimes, these are women who are facing violence, and they take part in a group and they become aware that they're victims of domestic violence or other forms of violence. So these shelters are different from other organizations. They will support women who want to go to a shelter. Sorry, my headset was slipping. So they assist them and refer them to a shelter, but often women who are victims of violence may not go through that, and sometimes we wonder why it's women who are leaving and not the violent partners. So at our center, we work with women to rebuild their self-confidence without making them feel responsible for the violence that they faced. They often come out of this stronger and are able to leave or are able to get the violent partner to leave. As I said earlier, the women's centers work on 3 things: services, educational workshops, and collective actions. Services are often the first contact, so we can help them with their CVs, we can help them open a bank account, because there are, yes, still women who don't have bank accounts, and they'll only have a joint account. Often it is women who are victims of economic violence or economic abuse. At women's centers, at the Women's Center, we believe that as long as there isn't equality between women and men, and between even women and other women, and there will be violence against women. And there needs to be universal services. Earlier we talked about daycares, but the daycares need to be available. Currently in Quebec, there is a big issue with accessibility to those daycares. We also often say that daycares will give women the opportunity to work, but it should be able to give it should be giving all humans the opportunity to work. And that's also something that the women's centers are working on, changing mentalities, working on an in-depth equality. I'm forgetting my words, I apologize. So yes, thank you very much. I see that the pen is raised. Thank you for the invitation, and I will be pleased to respond to your questions.
Thank you so much. I'm now going to pass it over to the Peterborough Police Service. You have 5 minutes. However you wish to share the time, you have 5.
Thank you so much. I would first like to start off acknowledging that we are on the traditional territory of the Michisagiig and the Chippewa Nations, covered by Treaty 20 of the Williams Treaties. Thank you for inviting us to speak as a witness at this committee hearing, and specifically thank you to Chair Karen Vecchio and our local MP, Michelle Ferreri. Alice Citram is our Victim Services Coordinator, and I am Emily Jones, the Community Development and Engagement Coordinator. Both of these positions are embedded within Peterborough Police. These two positions within the service have the unique ability to focus on all 3 levels of social change, advocacy, and supports: micro, individual victim support services; meso, community relationships; and macro, political and community strategies. This gives us the ability to hear and understand the issues for individuals, identify system barriers and supports, and ultimately advocate for change within all levels of government and community systems. I will now be handing it over to Alice Citram to discuss our recommendations to this committee. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to address the committee on behalf of Peterborough Police and its Victim Services Unit. Research has shown that violent crimes like intimate partner violence have long-lasting psychological, physical, social, and economical impacts, not solely on the primary victim, but on children, extended family members, neighborhoods, schools, workplaces, and the general safety and well-being of communities. In recent years, police services across this country, like Peterborough Police, have committed themselves to becoming more trauma-informed with their investigations, collaborate in a more fulsome way with their community partners through committees and roundtables, and to commit to the prevention education in school when it comes to healthy relationships. What we know based on decades of research on relational trauma is that victims who experience intimate partner violence in the home as a child have a much higher likelihood of experiencing future victimization, like polyvictimization and intergenerational trauma, mental health issues, addiction, risk of suicide, and many other physical health issues such as cancer, obesity, or heart disease. We also know that individuals, families who are Indigenous, racialized, LGBTQ, or experiencing other forms of marginalization like homelessness, poverty, addictions, and living in remote communities have additional barriers to healing. So what do we do with this knowledge? The recommendation that we are respectfully putting forward to this committee is the reinstatement of a federal victim compensation program. A victim's needs for reconstructing their lives have been articulated in the research as fourfold: financial, physical, emotional, and social. And we argue that victim compensation can address all of those. In fact, victim compensation is and always has been a symbol of our collective social response to the violence experienced by victims. A report published in 2021 by the Office of the Federal Ombudsman for Victims of Crime stated that compensation is a critical first step on a victim's road to recovery. The United Nations adopted the Declaration of Basic Principles of Justice for Victims of Crime and Abuse of Power, which provides concrete actions that every government should adopt to respect the interests and needs of victims. It is based on the best knowledge and experience from across the world to specify what must be done to provide access to justice, protection, information, assistance, and reparation for victims of crime. The UN Declaration stresses that states should endeavor to provide financial compensation through the establishment, strengthening, and expansion of national funds for compensation. It's worth noting that Canada played a critical role in this declaration. The Victim Bill of Rights that was introduced by the federal government in 2015 includes many of the same topics addressed in the UN Declaration. However, it fails to mention a state compensation program. Another criticism of the Victim Bill of Rights is that it failed to include a method of enforcing the rights of victims, and as such, if Canada fails to uphold them, there is no recourse. Canada no longer meets the standards and norms set out by the UN Declaration with respect to state compensation. Victims of crime in Canada have uneven access to services. Eligibility criteria for compensation varies from province to province. Compensation programs must address medical expenses, loss of income, mental health, practical needs, safety, and most importantly, pain and suffering. The symbolic value of dealing with these issues through some type of compensation helps validate the commitment of society to victim assistance as a whole. Currently, only 2 provinces offer pain and suffering awards to victims of crime, including intimate partner violence. In Canada, we have just 1 criminal code, yet we have a disjointed patchwork of available services for victims. Following a trauma-informed approach, a federal victim compensation program would offer the recognition of the impact of intimate partner violence on Canadians and help pave the road in restoring a victim's value, power, and dignity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're now going to start with our first round of questions. We're going to be providing each party 6 minutes. We're going to start that off with Michelle Frary. Michelle, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much to all of the witnesses. Great work, and very happy and proud to see Peterborough on the list as a member of Parliament for Peterborough-Kawartha. So, hi to everybody. I want to start by going to Alice and Emily, and I think more so, I guess, to Alice. When we were looking at victims' services, thank you for all of your recommendations, by the way. And I think, the compensation is a fair discussion that needs to be had because, how do you get back your life? And I think it's fair. I think what we're also trying to look at is how to prevent victims from even becoming victims too. But to that point, I'm curious, in some of my conversations with victim services, they seem to say there's 3 things really that victims are looking for. And I'm curious if you agree with them. Information before things happen, restitution, counseling. Would you agree with that?
Thanks for the question, Michelle. And yes, I would agree. And that's actually what the research has talked about too. In fact, what they say about information is that they call it the gateway to all of the other pieces and needs when it comes to addressing victims of crime. And not just information, as you mentioned, about what's available out there, but once something happens, information is the groundwork that victims need for empowerment, for feeling like they have some level of control in the process that they have now embarked on. And as we know with domestic violence, because of mandatory charging, oftentimes there's a whole level, there's all these steps that are happening without a victim's sort of input or involvement, all for the safety of the victim, of course, and the children. But because of that mandatory charge piece, the key around information is huge so that they can have an appreciation of, okay, what am I to expect from this process?
Can you give like a really specific example? Obviously, I know confidentiality, but could you give an example of what that would look like and what can be done maybe in a policy level that would be implemented to make sure that there is clearer communication, that the victim is included more in the exchange of information?
Sure. And I mean, I guess I can answer it in a way that of different models that I've seen around the world where victim assistance is more of a case management approach where you have your worker and that worker is essentially your go-to person who's able to give you access to information on court, to keep you informed about services, to also be somewhat of a not trauma counselor, but sort of that person who's able to unpack some of those, that crisis intervention of early days, and then maybe set up more long-term support. So this case management model we see in other countries where, it's fantastic. So we know that relationship is one of the key things when it comes to therapeutic models and therapeutic interventions. And we don't have relationship when you have this person who's going to call you maybe once a month for this, or you speak to one person about that. it's very disjointed, it's very patchworky, and trust and relationship is the number one and fundamental piece when it comes to therapeutic relationships.
I hope that gets underlined when we have this report from this committee, because I agree with you wholeheartly. I'm sorry, I would love to keep talking to you, but I know I'm short on time.
It's all good. Thanks
Emily,
for the question.
Yeah, thank you for answering it. Emily, just really quickly, you do so much work, you know, in terms of reaching out to the community and working with all of these agencies. You do really great work in understanding the mosaic. I like this word that's come up multiple times in this committee, because it is a mosaic. It is so many pieces that have to come into play. My question is very direct. Do you think money is the only thing that solves this issue?
I don't think money is ever the only thing that solves an issue. I think it's incredibly important. Obviously, we know that resources are so important. What I know about Peterborough specifically, that I can't attribute to other communities, is that we have a huge ecosystem, is like how I would like to refer to it, as of communities that really strive to work together. It's not always perfect. And I think a lot of the reason why it's not always perfect is because there is a almost competition or for those resources. And so when there's not a distribution and equal access to resources for people who are receiving direct access, like clients, people who've experienced violence, or to the services that are set to help them, then it does become a highlighted issue. So
would it be, sorry, I know I hate cutting people off.
You got about 45 seconds left.
Okay. Would it be valuable for the government to implement some kind of strategy where you don't have this sort of, and I use air quotes, cannibalism for organizations competing for funding so that they can be incentivized to work more together to help the greater good?
Yeah, I think anytime that we can encourage agencies to be collaborative is always a good thing. And I think that having direct access to funds for victims of crime or victims of violence is a good thing.
Thank you so much, Emily.
Thank you so much. We're now just going to pass it over to Emanuela Lamopoulos. Emanuela, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm actually
it
going
looks like Anita. Anita, we're going to switch it over to Anita Vandeveld. Anita, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And my first question is to Ms. Lalouvi. You mentioned that when we're talking about newcomer women, that the lack of social networks, sometimes language barriers, leads to significant underreporting. And also it means that they're very, very isolated and may not even be aware of services that are available to them. Some years ago, after I was elected, I know that I partnered with yours and a number of other organizations to put together fridge magnets that I sent to every single household in my constituency that has your organization, Immigrant Services of Ottawa's number, among other numbers of emergency contacts on it. How important is it that we have ways of reaching people who may not even be leaving the house very often, who may not have other ways of being able of even being aware of what number they can call? I know that there are still people who have that on their fridge. It's been there years. They forget that it's there. And so if needed, if there's an emergency, that number is right there for them to call. I've seen it also on college campuses. Algonquin College in the bathroom, the women's bathroom, has a number of services listed, including yours, about where women can go and who they can call for help. Can you tell me how important that is? And also, what are other ways that organizations like yours and others in the community can raise awareness and reach those people who are extremely isolated and don't have other means of finding out how to get support?
Thank you for this important question. Yes, indeed, absolutely. It is important that women have access to all the information that they need to be able to reach out to receive services. So having our information on fridge magnets, and that is key. But more so, we have to, it has to be a cross-sectoral venture, making sure that all organizations within our communities are aware of all these resources. And so when there's an immigrant woman who comes to them, that could be a health center, and they're able to provide this information. So it has to be a cross-sectorial initiative where everyone is informed of all the resources that are available. On our part, at Immigrant Women's Services Ottawa, we've taken the initiative to have prevention, awareness and prevention initiative where we're connecting with community agencies. We're reaching out to pockets of immigrant women who are isolated. They're not getting out. They need the information. They need the information on the resources that are available to them. So if they're not getting it, someone needs to get it to them. So this is one of the initiatives that we're taking, trying to reach out to women where they're at and provide them with information, and at the same time have that cross-sectorial engagement. And also we're trying to involve the men also, so that it's not it's not just a women's issue. They have to also be involved and know the ramifications of actions and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. And our committee has actually heard about some very creative ways in which women were reaching women, even through hair salons. So I think that sounds like that's a very important way of doing it. How important is it, particularly for newcomer women, that the services are culturally sensitive? You mentioned issues even in terms of interpreters and how to interact with interpreters, issues with housing. What is it that we can do as legislators to make sure that there are culturally sensitive services available for newcomer women?
Yes, it's really a critical issue. The whole reason IWSO was formed 34 years ago was precisely for this reason, because immigrant and racialized women found it a barrier to access existing mainstream services. So there was that need to have organizations that provide that cultural response to their needs. Immigrant women have different and additional systemic barriers. They have additional barriers that need different responses to. So it's critical that there are organizations that will meet these cultural needs of these women. So one size does not fit all. So for immigrant and racialized women, it's critical that there's an understanding of their cultural issues that they're facing, the barriers that they're facing, the additional challenges that they're facing in their day-to-day life. How does that intersect with their experience of violence? A very good understanding of all that is needed to be able to help them effectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have how many seconds? Okay, just very quickly then, for families, for women who have a larger number of children than the average, is there an additional barrier, and how do we resolve that in terms of shelters and making sure that there's space that's modular for larger families?
Yeah, about 25 seconds to respond.
Thank you for that question, because that is a real concern. I've known of women, immigrant women, who've stayed in shelters for longer periods of time because they had large families, they had many children, and therefore couldn't get space in subsidized housing. So this is a real issue. So consideration has to be made for immigrant families who are usually large families. So that is something that should be on the table when considering housing.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're now going to pass it over to Adrienne. Adrienne, you have 6 minutes.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to thank our 4 witnesses for being with us today, and thank you for the work that you do on the daily on intimate partner violence. My first question is for Ms. Vallée. During our last sitting last Tuesday, a witness mentioned that we need to support the feminist movement and feminist organizations because research showed that they are the ones that bring about change with violence against women and domestic violence, and I support that statement. Your center shows that you clearly support that as well, and I would like to thank you for being here today. But in March 2020, your organization sent in a report on people who were victims of violence and domestic violence. In that report, you talk about the importance of eliminating barriers to support, and a lot of women are afraid of reporting because of those barriers. Can you explain some of the barriers that women face? Answer. Well, to always have to repeat their story and what happened to them at every step. Since that report was published, there was another report that was published in Quebec called Rebuilding Trust. And a lot of things were done to eliminate barriers to reporting. There's also sometimes a lack of understanding about what violence against women is and what the cycle of domestic violence is and responders don't all have that knowledge. From the police officer that they will be meeting in their small village that didn't necessarily follow all the training, well, that officer might not believe her. And from that moment on, we're slowing those women down and they're not able to have power over their situations, and it traumatizes them over again. Speaking of trust, what could the federal government do to rebuild trust with women who are in the system and to facilitate their reporting of violence? Answer. I don't currently have the knowledge of what's being done at the federal level. I think, as you stated, as one of the witnesses stated during a previous meeting, that feminist groups need to be heard. I think that one of the things that we heard in the march in 2020 was to organize a campaign on, and it would be funding, and it would allow us to raise awareness in the public with equality between people and work on violence prevention. And even at that time, like the campaign against drunk driving, there were two sides. There was one side that was more preventive and one side that was more reactive. If we had taken that request from feminist groups seriously 20 years ago, well, perhaps we would have already have seen improvements now. I think that's something that should be examined again in order to raise people's awareness. We talk a lot about awareness raising and understanding those who commit violence, men and partners, but we also need to work with children and boys and promote equality. Thank you. You mentioned the Rebuilding Trust report from Quebec, and I have less than a minute, but there were many recommendations. For example, the e-bracelets and the creation of the special tribunal for those e-bracelets and the other claims. Would they be good for eliminating certain barriers and giving them trust or helping them feel safe? Answer. All of those things together are great steps to help us meet our goals, but it needs to be accessible to all women throughout the country, because there are still currently regions that don't have internet, and those gadgets work with internet and cell networks. So, firstly, all different regions need to have that same internet coverage. And same thing for a special tribunal. Of course, you could implement one in Montreal with people who are well aware, but it might not be the same in another region. And there's one in Granby that will be created.
Now to Jenny. Jenny Kwan, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for your presentation and for the excellent work that you do in our communities. First, I'd like to ask Mercy on the question around newcomer supports. As the current support systems for newcomer experiencing intimate partner violence insufficient, and maybe more to the point is, where do you see the gaps that needed to be filled to better support newcomers?
Thank you for this question. And in response, I don't think that the supports for newcomers are sufficient at this point. Newcomers are particularly vulnerable when they come to Canada. They either don't speak the language, they don't know how the system works, they don't know where the resources are. So it's critical, as I mentioned in my opening statements, it's critical that they get the information sooner than later. As soon as they arrive into Canada, it's critical that they get information on, the resources that are available. What are Canada's laws around gender-based violence and so on. So that is needed. Just to give an example, when we had the influx of Syrian refugees, after a while, we had lots of referrals coming in for violence-related issues, and we asked ourselves, did they get any information about, what their rights were, where to go for support? And so we had focus groups amongst this group, and what we found out was that they had no information. So it's critical that newcomer women coming into Canada receive that information, preferably right at the ports of entry, and also at their adult education schools. There must be some curriculum tackling this, and information outspread within the community where if they went for a doctor's appointment, they could easily pick up some resources in their languages. So that needs to be. So there are gaps. There are gaps. We need to reach out more absolutely to newcomers because they are exceptionally vulnerable when they come to the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that answer. I particularly also appreciate the notion of providing the information in that language at the port of entry, because that's what I am hearing from the community groups on the ground here in British Columbia as well. Now, your organization offers housing, transitional support programs, and such. And so in terms of the major struggles for women experiencing women as well as gender diverse individuals and families face when attempting to flee violence and find housing, what can the government do and what should the government do to better provide this support?
I think, that there needs to be more affordable housing to begin with. There needs to be more spaces in shelters. That was a huge issue because when COVID struck, violence just shot up. The instances of violence shot up, and we found ourselves not being able to find shelter space for women needing to flee for their safety. So there needs to be additional shelter space for women fleeing violence, also more affordable and safe housing, because that's an issue. We're trying so hard to get women into safe and affordable housing, and the wait time is really long because there are not enough affordable housing. So these are things to be considered. And also, as I mentioned earlier, there are women immigrants with large families. They come with lots of children, so that becomes an issue. They're underhoused. They might have a 2-bedroom apartment for a family of 6 or 7. So these are issues that need to be considered.
Have you encountered this problem in your region? Because this is a problem that I know exists in Vancouver East, for example. Women who are fleeing intimate partner violence show up at a shelter. and the shelter is only available for them and their children. And if in the instance where one of their child is a boy and is 16 years old or 16 or older, they're not able to stay with their mother in that shelter, so they get separated. Is that a problem that you're encountering in your community, and what do you think the solutions are?
Well, yes, this is a problem here as well. So yes, because sometimes you have children 16 who is tall, 6 foot, and it becomes an issue having them in a shelter. So what happens sometimes is that the option is that they are placed in motels or hotels, and that in itself creates additional challenges because there are safety concerns. There's not enough. It's not as secure, and sometimes in motels, I mean, they have to live on snacks, and so they can't cook meals, and so it creates a whole screw of issues. So my recommendation is that we bear this in mind as we are creating shelter space, that it is critical that this be kept in mind because it is an issue, especially with immigrant women who have sorry.
No, it's okay.
So this is something to it's a problem and must be kept in mind when shelter spaces and alternatives are being considered.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're now going to pass it over for our next round. And with our first 5 minutes, I'm going to pass the floor to Dominique Vien. Dominique, you have it 5.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to our witnesses this afternoon. I would like to come back to what Miss Alice stated with regards to the Victims Compensation Program. You can tell me first and foremost if I understood you correctly. And you talked about 2 provinces that had that system in Canada. So I imagine that includes Quebec, which has that Victims Compensation Program. I don't know if you said the other province, but I can't remember what it is. And of those 2 programs, Alice, which of those models could be implemented in Canada? How would you imagine such a program in Canada?
Merci pour la question.
Thank you for your question.
I used to be bilingual, and so I'm going to answer in English so I say it properly. So when I was talking about the 2 provinces that had the pain and suffering award specifically around compensation. So right now, 9 of 10 provinces have some form of victim-related compensation. Though there are some provinces and territories that have absolutely nothing. Newfoundland is one of those provinces that has no victim compensation. What I will say about Quebec's compensation program, because I had direct experience with Quebec's process this past year, it is one of the most robust compensation programs there is in the entire country, I have to say, just based on the monetary value that's allotted to victims and the pain and suffering award that is included. So basically what we have is a patchwork. Canada back in the 90s essentially said, each province and territory, you're going to take care of your own compensation program. And what happened is that these programs are so costly that some of the provinces either did cutbacks or took out the compensation program altogether. And so what that did is it's very much based on eligibility, which is different within each province. It's very time sensitive and it's limited. So it's okay, you had a door broken down, we can replace your door. What pain and suffering does is that we know, especially when we're talking about intimate partner violence, one of the number 1 reasons women do not leave an abusive relationship is because of economical barriers. What am I going to do once I leave? Where am I going to live? How am I going to feed my kids? I have to take time off work, all of those things. And what compensation does is that it addresses all of those pieces in a much more trauma-informed, holistic way. And I don't know if that answers your question completely, or if there was something else that you wanted me to address.
Vous, ce que vous souhaitez finalement.
So, what you would hope to see would be a uniform implementation of a national program for the compensation of victims of crime.
Yes. And that is the recommendation put forward by the Federal Ombudsman for Victims of Crime as well, based on well-researched facts around limitations to compensation and what compensation can do for victims of crime, especially domestic violence.
A minute left.
Merci.
Thank you. Do I still have any time left?
Alors, rapidement.
So, briefly, Ms. Stéphanie Bally, you stated that as long as there's not equality, there will always be violence. Is that because the equality of rights is not truly equality? Because I think we are equal to men, but I don't understand the link that you made. I think we may not have enough time, but it's true, it would be an in-depth discussion to have throughout an evening. I'll say it this way, and I don't want to insult anyone, but when we're in a higher socioeconomic status, we think that equality has been reached. There are people that I've seen with more income that is higher than $250,000, and they think that we have equality. But for those who don't make that kind of money, well, they know that there isn't, in fact, equality. Thank you.
Turn it over online. We have Sonia Sidhu at Sharing with Jenna. So I'll start off with you, Sonia. You've got the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay. Chair, thank you all the witnesses being with us. My question is to Ms. Jones or Mr. Sizistrom from Peterborough Police Services. One of the focus of this study is particularly around teen dating violence. How would you recommend families can best support a teen in a violent relationship, particularly when they're sensitive cultural consideration?
I'll start with an answer. Thank you for the question. I think that there's lots of layers to that question because, you know, one of the things that we know about supporting young people around teen violence is that it's not just one solution or one phase to that question. So there's the family dynamic where we have relationships where, you know, whether the teen is honest about how healthy the relationship is or not, but the parents suspect things are not going well. There's the school environment where we have that teen placed in a different environment where, you know, other dynamics are happening there. And then we have the community at large. So I think to answer your question is that we need a multi-pronged, multi-sector approach to dealing with teen violence. It can't just be police. It can't just be schools. It can't just be community-based programming. It has to be all of us together working at once so that we're all speaking the same language, that we all understand the barriers to accessing services for teens especially. I think school systems can provide such a rich value of knowledge around what is actually going on in the school systems for teenagers and relationships that are formed within those environments as well. And I'll leave it to Emily if she wants to add anything to that.
I don't have much to add other than right in Peterborough Police, we do have officers that do go into the school currently. I know that's been kind of assessed over Canada, whether that's a good thing or bad thing, especially for racialized youth and what that might mean in terms of feeling safety around officers. But I think what we're working towards and what we've done really well is that the officers that are engaging in the school system are trauma informed. They're engaged with our with Alice, with the Victim Services Unit. They're making sure that they're making those referrals alongside myself and Alice to those right ecosystems that are going to help the youth navigate. So it kind of making sure that we're in the right direction around trauma informed, especially because we know we're police, a police service.
Thank you. Next questions to Ms. Loveloy. Sorry if I pronounce right.
That's fine.
You mentioned that immigrant women need culturally sensitive support. Many immigrant women, including young women, they are away from their families for the first time, lack awareness on where to get the support or the awareness that they have legal rights, what kind of rights they have. How can education and awareness projects on gender-based violence cater to the needs of people from diverse culture and racialized communities?
Thank you for this question. I think I'll go back to the fact that we have to have a robust I think it's more of a prevention, getting that information to all these immigrant women and youth. It's critical that they have all this information. So having that outreach, getting to communities that are isolated, that are not, accessing services as, coming to organizations and so on. We need to go to those vulnerable organizations. We need to connect with mainstream organizations and provide resources that they can also distribute to immigrants that come, because it's critical that information that gets to them, so that they are aware of their rights. A lot of immigrant women are afraid of the criminal justice system. They need to have information of what to expect should they involve the police and so on. So that is critical, and a way of doing that is through community engagement, outreaching into the community with all the information that is required. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Over to Jenna.
Jenna, you have 20 seconds.
20 seconds, not much time, but I guess I would just build on Sonia's question in that I know you mentioned, Mercy, the need for affordable housing, and I'll just leave that as a comment. I'm not sure you have time to respond to it.
Actually, I'll give you about 10 seconds, okay? 10 seconds.
Yes. Thank you for that question. Affordable housing is a huge issue because, as you know, immigrant women mainly access low-paying jobs, minimum wage jobs. There's that element of poverty through. Sorry, is the time over?
Yes, your time was over before you began, but
I began. Okay.
Yes.
So suffice it to say that it is a huge issue.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for the next 2.5 minutes, we're going to pass it over to Adrienne. Adrienne, 2.5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will continue asking my questions to Ms. Vallée, and I really hope that you will get better. And once you no longer have COVID, it would be great to be able to meet and chat. So, in the report for adapting things for victims, they say 70% of women who are victims of violence are not taken into account. And often they turn towards their family. And you mention in that coercive control. Is that something that you are familiar with, and do you assist women who are victims of coercive control? Answer yes to all your questions. Just briefly, we welcome women and we help them recognize that they are victims of violence, and we want them to be able to take their power back, and we can also help them recognize sometimes that they are violent people. I think if that's what you're referencing. And we also make the distinction between the systemic problem of violence and the violence that women do that doesn't come from the patriarchy. So we examined both of those issues, and I was not working for L'Art des Centres de Femmes when that report came out, so I'm not fully aware of it. I do remember it, though, because I was working in a women's center. And what was the other part of your question? I think I'm running out of time, and I wanted to say two things. Hopefully, the next action plan on 10 years doesn't take 10 years. So thank you, Madam Chair, and I would like to offer my condolences to the most recent femicide victim and to their community as well.
Thank you very much, Adrienne. That is a very difficult time for the community, and I think those are words that we all share. I'm now going to pass on for the final 2.5 minutes to, I know she's on there. There you are, Jenny. To Jenny Kwan. Jenny, 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to ask this question to both of the witnesses, but maybe I'll start with Ms. Valley first. Lair's basic spaces of political unity identify that poverty is connected to unpaid care work and government social policies that, quote, prefer to reduce social spending rather than redistributing wealth and creating stable jobs. So we know from research that raising living standards and lifting individuals out of poverty is one of the key ways to address intimate partner violence. My colleague Leah Gazan has put forward a bill for a guaranteed livable basic income to ensure that individuals and families doing unpaid work can have economic autonomy and opportunities to leave harmful living situations. So would you agree that this is a fundamental step for the government to take to lift individuals out of poverty?
Évidemment que...
Yes, all of those measures will get results. But we have to understand that caregivers are still women. Women are the ones who take care of children. And when there are no daycare spaces, it's women who stay home because socially it's still men who are in traditionally more well-paid jobs, whereas women are in more caregiving jobs or restaurants that are open during times where daycares aren't open. I'm talking about restaurants here, but it can be any kind of similar business. So if there could be a guaranteed livable income, then yes, it would give great support to women who are victims of violence.
And Mercy, I think she wanted you. You've got 30 seconds.
Yes, I think this will be a huge step because lifting women out of poverty is critical in curbing gender-based violence. As I mentioned earlier, financial security is key. Economic dependence is one of the risk factors that puts immigrant women at risk of gender-based violence. So, I totally support a guaranteed livable income. Anything that can lift women out of poverty is welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you so much to all of our witnesses today. Thank you to Mercy, Stephanie, Alice, and Emily for joining us for our panel. On behalf of us, thank you and for all your testimony. Just a reminder, next Tuesday, we are so busy. We will have, as an individual, Genevieve Lessard from the Calgary Immigrant Women's Association, Centre Femmes des Belles-Chaussées, Peter Jaffe, Les Jetés, Les Jonctions pour Elles Incorporated, Peel Regional Police, and the Safe Center of Peel, as well as the Assembly of First Nations. So let's stay busy and let's get rested for next Tuesday. Today's meeting is adjourned.